Hi everyone, welcome to the Portrait Artist Guide to Procreate live Q&A. I'm Lisa Filion and you can always find me as Pixel Princess on the Sktchy app. And I'm really excited about this course that came out not too long ago. So it's called the Portrait Artist Guide to Procreate. And how this course is structured is a little bit different than some of my other Sktchy courses, or Sktchy Art School courses, I should say, in that it's made up of a series of short videos that kind of show different tools and techniques in short, really easy to follow kind of instructions. And so you can kind of skip ahead afterwards to any of the little short videos, or you can watch the whole thing as one big long sequence, kind of whatever suits your learning style. So I'm pretty excited about it. I see Meryl says good morning. Hi, Meryl. So you guys can, of course, comment and ask me questions during this Q&A. But what I thought I would do first is for people maybe new to the Sktchy Art School or who haven't signed up for the course yet, I'm just going to play you the promo video so that you can see what our course is all about. So I'm just going to do that now. The iPad app Procreate is a portrait artist's best friend. Hi, I'm Lisa Filion and I'm an artist and art teacher from Ontario, Canada, and I've used Procreate almost every day for the last 3 years to create anytime, anywhere, in any medium my heart desires. In this class, I'm going to teach you everything I've learned so far so you can take your portraiture to new heights using Procreate. We'll cover everything from the most basic app features, like setting up a canvas and accessing tools, to more advanced Procreate features like liquefy and even animation, so you can literally bring your portraits to life. Then I'll help you bring it all together by showing you my process of creating a portrait from start to finish. When you sign up, you'll get lifetime access to 5+ hours of class videos in Sktchy Art School. I can't wait to create portraits in Procreate with you, so let's get started. Okay guys, so hopefully that helped to explain a little bit more about the class. If you have questions along the way during our Q&A session here, please don't hesitate to ask. One thing I did want to mention is there is a time delay between my broadcast and you guys seeing it. So there's about a 20-second delay. So that means that the way that I answer questions, you might notice a little bit of a delay. Hopefully that won't be the case, but just wanted to point that out to you guys that there is a bit of a delay between us. So I had some questions right off the bat in the Sktchy Art School about the new Procreate 5 features that just came out. As some of you guys might be aware, Procreate just recently put out a huge update that's really exciting and has some new pretty cool features. So I thought that we could kind of go over some of those new features today, if you guys are up for that. And then of course I can answer any other questions that you might have. The other thing that I want to do today is hopefully get to doing a live drawing session. So I have pre-chosen a really cool reference on Sktchy, so you guys can see it this way on the screen. So the reference photo is by a Sktchy user called Thera Messero. And she posted this beautiful picture that caught my attention because of the vibrant colors. Where I am right now, it's pretty cold outside, so I think I was also attracted to like the beach scene in the background. It's got really great lighting, and I think it's an amazing portrait. So I thought that I would draw that with you guys today, and then also at the same time answer any questions that you have. So let's dive into some of those new features in Procreate to start, and then we'll open up more questions, okay? So, hold on, guys. Okay, so I'm just going to remove my reference photo there. So here's my iPad view here set up for you guys. I've kind of gone ahead and drawn in just a really kind of quick, rough outline of my reference. So I have my iPad in split screen mode. In the video tutorials, it's one of the first things that I show you guys how to do in our lessons. This is the way that I like to work on my iPad, because then I can have my reference side by side with my drawing. And because I'm right-handed, I like to put the reference on the left. But again, that's personal preference, what you want to do. And I like to have my drawing screen a little bit bigger than my reference screen, but you could do a complete split view as well, or go back and forth between those two workflows. One benefit of the split view that might help you with sketching is if you line up, and you can zoom in on both, your portrait to your sketch and make them the same size, I feel like it's a really good way to be able to better master proportions and kind of figure that out. So I can look side by side and see if there's anything that I need to change or alter with my proportions. So I can see something right away. I thought I would maybe use, Procreate has a new pencil called the Procreate pencil. So it's what I kind of started to use with my darker outlines here. So it's kind of got a cool little bit of a bleed effect. It's a little bit of a different experience with a pencil. So I thought we'd try it out today in this live demo. So I'm just going to fix that cheekbone a little bit, make it a bit more pronounced. And yeah, so I like this split screen view to be able to do that for sure. Okay, so I'm going to go back, and I wanted to talk about some of the new features of Procreate 5. If you're not sure which version you're running, you can click on Procreate and see the version here. So it's 5.0, it's brand new, it just came out not very long ago. You're going to be able to, if you're used to the Procreate 4 version, you're not going to find it, I think, too different. It's just that they've added some new features. And maybe there's a few places where some of the menu items have changed, but overall it's the same Procreate experience that you guys are used to and that we go over in our video tutorials on the Sktchy Art School. So you still have your plus button for creating a new canvas. I'm just going to create an 8x10 preset canvas that I've already created. Again, in our Sktchy lessons, I show you guys how to make custom canvases, and we talk about resolution, and we go through all of those details together. And some of the cool features that I really want to show you guys we're going to start with the brushes. So what you'll see that's a little bit different in the brush library, first of all, when you're looking at the brushes themselves, it's what you're used to. So it's exactly the same setup that we had in Procreate 4, which I think is a great setup. If you swipe down, you'll see a plus button to add a new brush. And then you can see that I've added a lot of custom brushes to mine, but you guys will get all of the default brushes that Procreate gives you, as well as any previous brushes that you may have owned. One thing that's new about Procreate brushes, for people that like to make their own custom brushes, I feel like this new version is a bit of a game changer for that, because it allows you to author your brushes. So what I mean by that is if I go into that Procreate pencil brush and I click on About This Brush, you guys can see that the Procreate pencil was made by Procreate, it's time-stamped, and it means that if you sell your brushes or share your brushes online, people will always know where the source of that brush came from, which wasn't the case before. So if I go to one of my custom brushes, and I haven't even had a chance to do this yet, but if I go to my watercolor brushes and I'll click into my first one here, my watercolor circle. So I'm going to type my name here. So I'm going to say it's made by Lisa Filion. Okay, done. So now it says made by Lisa Filion. And then what's really cool is you can actually sign your brush as well. So hold on, let me make sure my Apple Pencil is going to work here. Okay, I'm lying to go. Oh, there we go. There we go. A little bit of a glitch. Hold on. So I can just sign my signature there, which I think is a really cool new feature. And then you can create a new reset point. So that means if you change any of the features of your brush, you're going to want to create a new reset point and save that. So it says, are you sure you want to create a new reset point for this brush? This cannot be undone. Yes, I want to do that because I want that signature to be saved. And now if I go to share my brush forever, people will know that I made it, which is pretty cool. And in our lessons, I teach you guys how to make custom brushes. We make a custom signature together in one of the early lessons. So my signature is up here at the top. It's just a really simple LF inside of a circle. Again, if I click into that about this brush, I can do the same thing. So I can actually sign my brush here and write my name in. And it's just a nice feature, I think, that they've added. Create a new reset point for this brush, done. Okay. Another question that I've had asked in the Sktchy Art School is when you're creating a new brush, what are some of the differences between Procreate 4 and Procreate 5? So I thought we could address those right now. So if I go to create a new brush, I am going to press the plus button. And I've created an untitled brush right here, or you can create a new brush set there. So I'm going to just go back to my signature here and click into my untitled brush. It's pretty much the same as what you're used to. It's just that the layout has changed a little bit. So you still have a shape and a grain source, just like I show you guys in the video. It's just that instead of them being on the same screen together, they're separated in Procreate 5. So my shape source right now is set to a circle. I could import it something else if I wanted to. I could import a photo, a file, or from the source library. We're just going to choose something from the source library. So let's just choose, I don't know, this splash kind of source. That's pretty cool. And say done. And then we're going to choose a grain source as well. So right now the grain source is just blank. Again, if we want to import something from our source library or our own photo, we could play around with that. I'm just going to choose this crazy grain right here just for fun and select done. Under the properties of the brush, if you want to see what it looks like as a stamp, you're going to go use stamp preview. This again is the exact same as what you guys are used to before. It's just that it changed the look of it in terms of where it's located in the brush library. So you can kind of see how the brush behaves in this, and you can change whether you orient it to screen or not. And so we've created our own custom brush. If I click done, you can see that it's created a stamp. And I'm actually noticing as I'm doing this, see how I had to go out of it and come back in to see the stamp? I probably am guessing they're going to address that in a future update. Maybe that's just something that hasn't been addressed yet. But it should change to a stamp preview when you toggle this. So if that happens to you and it doesn't change right away, just go out, use the brush and come back in, and hopefully you'll see the stamp preview. So maybe just a little glitch there. So now you've created your own custom brush. Another feature that's new to Procreate 5 is if you click on the drawing pad, you can clear the drawing pad and you can actually test it out right here. So I didn't have to actually, you know, back in the Procreate 4 days, you had to go out and test it on your canvas and then come back in. So now you don't have to do that. So that's something that's pretty cool too. So I definitely think that they've added some amazing features to that brush library. Someone asks, so Janice asks, has Procreate Pocket Procreate Pocket been updated to a new version? As far as I know, it doesn't have all of the features that came out in Procreate 5. I think they're still working on that. But I don't want to say for sure because I do have Procreate Pocket on my phone, but I tend to use it not to draw, but I tend to use it to make custom brushes when I'm on the go. That sounds so funny to do that, but sometimes I'm in the car and I'm like, I'm going to make a custom brush on Procreate Pocket. So I tend to do that. So last time I've checked, it doesn't seem to be that much different. So I'm going to guess no, but we can double check for you. So thanks for asking that question, Janice. I want to show you some more features of the brush library before we move on. So my favorite new feature, first of all, there's a whole bunch of really cool new brushes. So one of them that I think you guys will be really excited about is, hold on, under Artistic. I love these brushes that they've included at the top here. So there's Wild Light, Aurora, Leatherwood, Hearts. There's really cool textures. I'm going to choose Aurora. I know that they featured it in some of their Procreate artists' artworks. I think there's an artist, I forget their name, but they used it as like kind of abstract tree foliage, which is really cool. What we're going to do is we're going to duplicate that brush. So now we have a brush called Aurora 1, and we could change the name of it. So if we go to brush, about this brush, we could go in and change the name. So I don't know. I'm not good at names, guys. Aurora. Let's call it Aurora Color. Okay, because I'm going to change the color of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into color dynamics. And this is something that's kind of new. So you can create color dynamics in terms of the stamp color jitter, the stroke color jitter, the color pressure, and the color tilt. And one thing I just want you guys to play with is the secondary color option. So if you just kind of move the secondary color, you can kind of see a little bit what's happening on the screen here, although it's in black and white, so you can't really get the full effect of it. But what you can do is you can actually create multicolor, almost like rainbow brushes, which I think is cool. So I kind of just changed a lot of things. So I'm on black, but look at this craziness that I get. And also it depends on how much pressure I apply too, because I changed some of the pressure settings as well. If I go to an actual color, so let's say a red, I'm not just getting red, right? I'm getting different shades, tints, and tones of that red. So I think that's such a cool feature that you could create like just really quickly, right? I'm not even spending any time on this. I could create like a really cool background for one of my portraits. And then I could easily, switch out to a different color and just kind of create some really cool painterly effects. So that's one that I wanted to show you guys. That's a new brush feature. If you guys have any other questions about brushes, please ask in the comments. I'm going to try to scroll through the comments soon and see. So let me look here. So Alberto, hi from Spain. Very cool. I'm in Canada right now, Alberto. Janice is from Northern California, and it's foggy there apparently. And Meryl said good morning already. I said hi. And Amaris says hi. Hi guys, thank you so much for joining me today. Hi Rick. Hi Unfun. Love that name. And then Janice, we already answered your question. Hopefully, I kind of answered it. So I'm going to continue on with my demo here of Procreate 5. And then if you guys have questions, please put them in the comments. So another cool feature of Procreate, and I'm going to just exit out of this for a second, is the new animation assist feature. And so we, for the first time, I think, in the Sktchy Art School, we actually show you guys a little bit of animation in this new course, so the Portrait Artist's Guide to Procreate. And I do 2 really quick animations in the course, and I can actually show you guys that right now for people that haven't seen already. So we have this one that animates. So if I just share this, you guys can see that he's got some crazy sparkles happening around his head here. I can slow that down. I can change the frames per second. I can make it really wild. So yeah, we do this in the course, just really simple to do. The other one that we do in the course, which is a lot of fun to do with portraits, is doing a little wink. So here she is winking, but if I show you the animated GIF, whoop, that's a crazy wink. We can slow that down. So here she is just constantly winking on a loop. I can slow it right down so that it's a little bit less jarring. And that one's really not that hard to do, and it literally gives life to your portrait. So I'm really excited about the animation features of Procreate. And now with the new Procreate 5, I would say they're even easier than they ever were before. So I made this little avocado animation, and I posted it on Instagram. So if any of you guys follow me there, you might have seen it already. It's just a really simple little animation. If I play He does a little wiggle and then whoops, he loses his pit. So it's got a few things going on that it's simple, but there's a couple things you have to pay attention to. So the avocado's moving, the little arms and legs are moving, his face is moving, the pit obviously is moving, and even the shadow is moving too. So there, if I pause this, I'll show you guys in the timeline view what it looks like. It looks kind of crazy in my timeline view. So this is what it looks like this. And I think it's just, I'm going to collapse my group so it doesn't quite look as intimidating. There's a lot of layers here. So in Procreate 4, you would do all of your animations in your layers view. You can still do that in Procreate 5. So you can do it exactly the same way that I teach you guys in the course. So you can still create layer groups. Every layer group is like a frame of your animation. However, in Procreate 5, they've made it even easier to keep track of your animations. So in Procreate 5, all of these groups are basically keyframes down here. So when I'm clicking on this grouping, you can see it corresponds with this grouping of layers. So under each group, I have a shadow, I have an avocado outline, I have an avocado shaded, I have a face, I have a left arm, left leg, and right leg. And because that's a lot, I put them all in one group. So they're all grouped together, which is this keyframe on here. So this is a really cool option in Procreate 5 because it just simplifies what you're seeing on your animation timeline. So every one of these is a frame in my animation. And obviously you can do a way more complex animation than even this little guy here. This one's pretty simple, but it still takes a while to go through and manipulate all those layers. If I go to settings, you have access to things that if you've dabbled in animation before, you'll know that frames per second is what's going to either speed up or slow down your animation. What's really cool is now you have onion skinning features. So if I turn on onion skinning, I'm able to actually see, sorry, I'll go back to settings. I'm able to actually see, and here's where the opacity is. So I'll just bring that up here to all of them. You can actually see a transparency of all of the other layers of the animation, so all the other keyframes. And this really helps. My animation's a little rough, but this helps to make really smooth, seamless animations because the onion skinning allows you to see the last frame that you created so that when you move something, you can just move it slightly and make it seamless. So I'll just take that off for now. And you can choose to also at the bottom do it as one continuous shot, a loop, or a ping pong. I have it on the ping pong, so it just like pops back and continues. A loop would obviously restart the animation and continue to loop it around. And then another cool feature is the ability to add a background to your animations. So this pink layer is a background layer. So see how I've set it to background? I'll turn that on. And if I go to my animation timeline, it's also a new group. So it's not actually the background color. And so in the new Procreate 5, you can also set whether you have a background or foreground element or something that's in the middle ground as well. So really, really cool features and really exciting stuff for anybody who's interested in animating, whether it's your portrait or any other artwork. So I've talked about my favorite features of Procreate 5. Those are, I think, personally, two of the biggest things for me. Of course, there's other features as well. So I'm just going to kind of take questions right now. So if other features pop up, we can answer those as we go. But I thought I would draw this portrait live because that's maybe a little bit more interesting. So I'm just going to rename this layer sketch. And I'm going to make a layer under. If you've taken any of my courses, you know that this is part of my process. I like to do a color under layer and a color over layer. It's just something that I've just kind of developed. And if you've also taken my courses, you also know that I really, really, really like the gouache brush. So I'm just gonna where's my gouache brush? There it is. It's under painting. I like it for skin tones. It's my new favorite brush for skin tones. So it's just really kind of a nice, almost like watercolory, I guess, gouache effect. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of block in a mid-tone. And while I'm drawing, if you guys have any questions about the course or new features in Procreate 5 or any techniques in terms of portrait drawing on an iPad or absolutely anything, please don't hesitate to ask me. I'm going to just kind of smudge that out. I used to not use the smudge tool very much, but I find that I've been using it more and more. But I just try to use it a little bit sparingly because I like to use actually my smudge tool on a brush that has texture, just because I don't tend to aim to have my portraits have like that really perfect airbrushed look. I like lots of texture. So that's why I've been kind of experimenting with that. In the Portrait Artist Guide to Procreate, the new class, I actually draw 2 portraits basically from start to finish. In the last lesson, it's completely taking all of the techniques that we've learned in the previous 3 lessons and putting it into one portrait. So it kind of scaffolds the learning in that way. So I'm really excited about that. So I'm just kind of adding some color in. I like to add lots of interesting colors to skin tones because I think that it just, I don't know, I think that it's just it could be a nice effect. So I'll probably add in some peaches as well. Just gives the portrait a warmth maybe. Okay, so I think that I'm just going to do that really, really quickly for my background or my color layer that's behind. And then I'm going to do a color layer over top. And in that color layer over top, I'm going to put more detail in. So I'm zooming in on my reference photo. I like to get in nice and close, especially for things like the eyes. I'm just going to turn my Wi-Fi off here. So I heard a question pop up. Is the course beginner friendly? Yes, thank you so much for asking that question. So I am really happy with this course because I feel like it's actually for all levels and it'll suit your needs whether you're just starting out or whether you've been drawing digitally for a long time. So in the first lesson, it's all the basics. So it's like kind of walking you through the program, getting you familiar with all of the tools, talking about how you can use those tools. And then in the second lesson, it's a whole bunch of fun features is what we call it. So just things that once you're familiar with kind of the basics, what kind of fun things can you add to your portraits using Procreate as your drawing platform? And then in the third lesson, we do advanced features. So what's kind of cool too is you can choose to work at your own pace. So if you're a beginner, you could just maybe, work on lesson 1 and 2 for a while, get really comfortable with it. And then when you feel ready, move on to lesson 3 where you have the more advanced kind of learning. And then lesson 4 is basically just taking everything that you've learned in those 3 previous lessons. And remember, they're all a whole bunch of sequences of short videos, taking them all and putting it all into practice. So learning how you're going to apply all those things from start to finish in your own portraits. So I hope that answers your question. I do think there's something for everyone in the course, in the class. I also think that Procreate itself, anytime you're learning a new piece of software, it can seem pretty daunting, I know, but I do think Procreate is a really amazing piece of software that's very user friendly. It's not intimidating for beginners because if you want to just use one brush and play around with your color palette, you can just do that for a really long time. You don't have to touch any of these advanced features over here. You don't have to make your own custom brushes. You don't have to do all of that stuff until you're just playing around, having fun, learning to draw digitally on your iPad. And then, once you kind of have done that, I guarantee you guys will fall in love with using Procreate, and then you'll want to learn those next steps, those new tools. I absolutely love the lighting in this portrait. I find a lot of the sketchy inspiration photos are really inspiring for artists, which is why the app is so much fun for artists to use. I just always find great references on the Sktchy app. And I think she actually, so this muse here, she actually just posted this photo the other day, I believe. So it's pretty new. So you can just like scroll through what are the newest pictures that people have posted for inspiration. And I just came across this one and loved it. I've really enjoyed so far seeing what students have drawn in the class already, even though it's only been out for a few weeks now. And yeah, portraits are looking amazing. It's so cool to see people's style develop and what everybody can kind of take from the lessons and then apply in their own way. Just looking at the comments, if you guys have any questions while I'm drawing, I would be happy to answer them. I'll just kind of keep going here though. Oh, I have a question about hair. So what type of brush is used to make hair? And Annie asks, am I using the gouache brush this whole time? Yeah, I actually haven't switched brushes. I'm kind of funny like that. Once I find a brush that I really, really like, I don't switch often. So right now I just switched to the peppermint brush under sketching. So I thought for the eyebrows, I might use a smaller brush just to get some texture in there. But so far for the skin and even for outlining my eye, I've used the gouache brush a lot. I think it's because, I mean, you guys do not have to do that. You can like use a million different brushes if you want. But I think it's actually because of the way that I kind of first learned digital art. I first started drawing in some really, really basic iPad drawing programs before I even knew Procreate existed. And those basic programs taught me a lot actually, because it taught me how to do quite a bit with minimal tools. And so I think because I was limited for so long to like one kind of brush for the skin or, so I think I just kind of incorporated that into what I do now, where I do have limited brushes or favorite brushes that I use for a lot of different purposes. So yeah, right now I'm using the peppermint brush, which is I think a new brush for Procreate 5, which I quite like. It's a very soft feeling pencil. It blends really nicely, but it still gives you that fine detail that you can get from a pencil. There's some really exciting new brushes. Like Procreate did a really good job with this update, coming out with really good new brushes. So the question about the hair, sorry, I did not forget. So I'm gonna make a hair layer. I like to isolate things on different layers because it's really one of the nice things about digital too, because if you end up not liking it, there's no risk, right? You can delete that layer later on. For this type of hair that's braided, I would probably do something different than if somebody had like straight hair or if somebody had curly hair. But one of the best things for starting off is to actually just use the brushes that you find under touch-ups. And so if you click into touch-ups, you'll find a fine hair, a flowing hair, and a short hair brush. And you'll also even find like stubble and stuff like that. If the person has long flowing hair, you might want to use, I'm just going to switch to a different color here, the flowing brush. So it looks like this. So you can see it creates that nice hair texture. Oops, sorry about that, guys. I didn't realize the screen came on like that. So it creates that nice texture there. And then what you can do is you can just go over it with different shades and tints and tones. And it takes a while to kind of figure out like how to blend it to make it look realistic. But I do really like this brush. You can turn down the opacity on it too and just kind of do overlays. So that's one option. For curly hair, I really like using more textured brushes. So under paint, I've used the turpentine brush a lot actually for curly hair. So you can see it creates these fun kind of sponge-like textures. So it just depends also how realistic you want your hair to look or if you want it kind of abstracted, but it just creates this really nice kind of curly hair texture that you can use. And then you guys have probably also seen, if you're familiar with any of my work, I like drawing really curly hair a lot. And for that, I often use actually like watercolor splatters. So something like this, where like I'll just kind of put them over top of each other. And this is a really abstract way of doing hair. But yeah, I'll just kind of layer splashes over top of each other to create the illusion of hair, and then sometimes mix in other things. So those are my go-tos for hair. Yeah, I would recommend trying those 3 things though, because to make hair look real, I just saw Amaris asked that question. To make hair look real, obviously you wouldn't do the splatter technique. I would use the hairbrush that you find under touch-ups. There it is there, touch-ups. So the flowing hair is my favorite. Short hair and fine hair are nice too, but I find I can control the flowing hairbrush a lot better. And try it on different opacities. Another tip that I have for you when it comes to hair is to also consider what hair is in the background, middle ground, and foreground, and if it even helps you to create 3 layers for the hair, because generally speaking, what's in the background is going to be the darkest, middle ground, mid, and then on top is going to be your highlights. So if you isolate that into 3 different layers, it can be really helpful. For her hair here, I think I might just use maybe like a 6B pencil to start. I'm on my hair layer. And because she has braids, I'm just going to kind of suggest where they are, color them in. So just to kind of do a little bit of a base layer right now to get the basic shape of her braids, and then go over top of it with more detail afterwards. Let me just zoom out of that. So I'm doing it in a really kind of sketchy, loose style. And then what I would probably do is take a brush that has again, like a bit of a nice texture to it. Like maybe a soft pastel actually would be kind of nice. And I'll just reduce the opacity a bit and just color this in as a base. And if you have an Apple Pencil or any stylus that has pressure sensitivity, you want to control how much pressure you apply to the canvas. So I'm just going to kind of suggest her highlights here, but we will go back to the hair afterwards. Hopefully I have time to finish everything I want to do today, but we do have some constrained time, I guess. So I'm going to go back to the face and keep working on that. And go back to my gouache brush. So I'm on the behind layer right now because I just want to speed up the process a little bit. So I'm just going to do a really rough blending there. And then I'll go back onto my color over layer and make this better. So I'm blending this out right now. If you're wondering, the blend, again, that I'm using is the stucco brush. But I'm using the gouache for the skin. So I'm going to try to add in like my shadows now. So I'm kind of just doing them as a light wash over top of what I've already put down. And I'm trying to kind of blend my skin tones together since I've used a few different colors here. And while I'm doing that too, any proportions that maybe I didn't perfectly get right in my rough sketch, I can kind of adjust them as well here. Any other questions, guys? If things you want to know? If not, I'll just keep drawing. I'm going to put a highlight on her forehead here. I kind of took away the highlight on her nose, so I'm going to try to add it more back in. To me, shading is definitely like a process of going back and forth. So Annie's asking, still trying to understand layers. Each skin layer is a different one. If so, why not keep it all on one? I could keep it all on one, I guess. So this is what my color layer below looks like. The only reason why I have it on two different layers, I guess it's just kind of what I'm used to, but it's because I'm able to see my sketch through that layer versus when I do the color over layer, I'm actually covering over the sketch. So if I wanted to combine those together later on, I could. So what I could do now, just to show you, I don't really need that to be underneath anymore. I'm kind of using it as almost like you would a base layer in a painting. So if you're traditionally painting, you would like paint your background color first instead of leaving the raw canvas there. I kind of think of it that way. So it provides me a nice base to work on top of instead of just working on the raw canvas. Again, you don't have to do it. It's just something that I've kind of done in my practice and it works for me. So if I moved, you saw it, because I want to keep my sketch still in a different layer, I think. So I've moved my color layer above. So now they're both above. If I click on the top one, I'm just going to go merge down. And now I only have one color layer, which is there, the skin tone layer. Hope that makes sense. I have my students at school, they use Procreate as well. And I tell them like it's never a bad thing to use more layers than you think because more layers just gives you more opportunity. So again, you're not as scared to make mistakes. You can experiment on a new layer and not worry about ruining something else. So it's never a bad thing to use more layers than you need. Unless, of course, you're doing something really high res and you have a limited number of layers to work with. But other than that, I would say just use layers really freely, and then you can merge them together once you're sure that you don't need them to be separate. So I'm working on a fairly low opacity or a little bit lower. I like to do that just to kind of blend things together with the brush itself. I actually think that I need to bring this lip a little bit closer. So sometimes when I'm coloring things in, I do tend to notice proportions better too. So I'm noticing that lip comes a lot closer than what I have it. So I'm just gonna, I think, work on the lips for a little while here. Again, if you guys have any questions while I am drawing, please let me know. Oh, hi, Shar. Shar says, this is great. Thank you, Sktchy and Lisa. Thanks so much for coming and watching. I don't know about you guys, but I find it really relaxing to watch artists draw or paint. It's basically one of my favorite things to do. Besides actually drawing and painting, I guess. That's also relaxing. So I'll just talk a little bit about the course while I'm kind of working on her mouth here. Um, I was saying before that one of the exciting things about this new class is that it's broken up into smaller videos, and I haven't done that before with my other courses, and I just think it's a really user-friendly format because it just makes it really easy for you guys to use those videos. You have lifetime access and go back, and if there's just something small that you kind of forget what to do, oh, I kind of forget how to use the selection tool, you can just find that 5-minute video and just watch that 5-minute part instead of having to kind of find it in a longer video. So I wanted to do something like this with Sktchy because I just think that it's so useful, especially if people are using the video tutorials to kind of help them understand the program itself, as well as how to create portraits too. So it's kind of twofold with our Procreate classes, right? It's learning the software, and then it's also learning how to draw portraits. And so the class is all about both of those things. It's about teaching you Procreate, but also teaching you portraiture too, and showing you kind of my methods for creating portraits on the iPad, and then you guys can apply them to your own drawings. Okay, so I'm still just kind of working on the mouth here. It's actually kind of a tricky angle. Sometimes when I do these live Q&As, I'm like cursing myself. Why did I choose that photo? I could have chosen something easier. But I really like this photo, so I guess that's why I chose it. Okay, so that kind of lines up. Yeah, I think I just need to move the tooth over a little bit, and that'll work out well. Teeth can be tricky, not to make people look like they have, like, I call it pirate teeth. You want to just suggest the teeth often without drawing the full like black outline between teeth, because that's going to look funny. So I find it's really a nice process to do in Procreate. I kind of just suggest where the teeth are, and then you can just easily go over top of it with the same color, presumably white, and just kind of play around with making the teeth the right angle and the right shape. Adrian asks, how much is that table? What do you mean, Adrian? Which table are you referring to? Tanya asks, are you grabbing the color when you touch and hold? Does it switch to the color you touched? Yeah, I am. So we talk about this also in the class. So this is the color picker. So one finger, tap and hold, will bring up the color picker, and you guys can see it kind of just, you can move it around and select color. I often create a color palette for my portraits. I'll just show you guys color palettes here. Right now we're using one of them that I used for a sketchy portrait, but if I go to my palettes, you can see I have some more organized than others. I have a skin tone palette that I really like, so I'll just set that one right now and go back to disc view. Yeah, and the new color picker actually shows you the history of the colors you've selected, so that's new. You can clear that history and restart too. I find when I'm first starting coloring a portrait, I'm using the palette a lot. You guys probably noticed that I was going back and forth between the palette and my drawing. But then once the portrait's kind of on its way and I've put down a ton of colors, like in this case, in its current state. It has a lot of color actually all over it. So then I can actually just start using the color picker and make my own custom colors. So that's something that you'll just kind of naturally, I think, work into your workflow. It feels really, really natural just to do that finger tap and pick up a color. And it's just a really easy way to also blend your colors too. Another new feature of the new Procreate 5 is the color picker is now movable. So it used to be stuck in this right corner. Now you can grab it and move it around. So a lot of people are really loving that. So that's kind of cool. And you can see in this kind of a little bit of a different view now too. So yeah, so some new features for sure. Oh, so sorry, Adrian asks, how much is that iPad? Um, you can go on the Apple Store in your particular country, because I could give you a number probably, but it might not be accurate to wherever you're from. So go on your Apple Store in your country, and if you look up the newest iPad Pro 12.9 inches, that's the one I'm using. And then they come with different memory options as well. So they get more expensive, obviously, the more memory or hard drives, the bigger the hard drive there is on it. So you can kind of decide for your needs what size you might need. For me, I used to, on my old iPad, I had a pretty low memory, like smaller hard drive. And so when I got this one, I think last year it came out last November, I think it came out. Yeah, I got more storage because I found it annoying that I had to keep exporting my Procreate videos to my computer all the time and saving them because I draw a lot. So this time I got more storage. So it really depends on your needs, what you're going to use your iPad for. I personally just love my larger screened iPad. If Apple made an even bigger one, I would probably get that. But I also have drawn on smaller iPad screens before too, and it's also quite lovely. So it really depends, what your needs are and what your budget is for your iPad. The newest Apple Pencil is pretty cool. It magnetically charges, so it actually, I know you guys can't see the top of my screen here, but it actually clicks onto the top of my iPad, so there isn't actually anything in the bottom of the Apple Pencil to plug it in anymore. So it actually just magnetically, wirelessly charges. So that's pretty cool. That's one of the biggest changes in terms of getting the newest iPad. Otherwise, drawing functionality is the exact same across the entire iPad line. Slowly getting there, guys. You can see it takes a long time, for me anyway, to draw a portrait. I would estimate on average, I probably spend um, anywhere between like 3 and 6 hours on average on a portrait. So I probably can't finish it entirely on this live Q&A. I'm probably going to keep working on it all day today and then post it onto Sktchy later on. But it's just so much fun. You could infinitely work on one portrait too. I have done some more complex portraits that have taken me a long time to create, but most of my stuff, like I said, 3 to 6 hours, I would say. Just trying to get like all of the like smile lines and everything kind of lined up where they're supposed to make it look like her. Kind of. And you can see my skin tone is still pretty rough, like it's not blended yet. So I could blend it with the gouache brush, so I just don't want it to be too soft. So I might just kind of go in and do that a little bit subtly here. So I'm just looking at some more questions here. Rebecca's dreaming of an iPad Pro for Christmas. Ooh, I hope you get one, Rebecca. They are pretty nice. I feel like my iPad is probably the number one best thing that I've ever purchased in my life, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that. So yeah, I really I know they're an investment. They're not inexpensive, but they do a lot. And yeah, so if any of you guys are getting one for Christmas, I'm super excited for you. I remember when I got my first iPad Pro in the mail with the first Apple Pencil, I was beyond excited. I was like, it is the thing I've been looking forward to my whole life. So yeah, I'm pumped for you guys who are maybe getting one for Christmas. Rebecca, yes, this video will be available later. So it'll be posted on YouTube right after the broadcast. So you can rewatch as well. And Tanya asks, will you use the blending tool to pull the different values together? Oh, yeah. So if this is what you mean, Tanya, I'm using one pretty standard thing to do is whatever brush you're using for, let's say, your skin tone, you could set your blending tool to the same brush. So set it to gouache. I'm going to reduce the opacity on it so that it's not too intense. And then, yeah, what it's doing is I don't know if you can tell on the screen, but it's actually, you can kind of see it moving here. It's actually just blending things together. So it's blending all of those colors that we've laid down all together. It's getting rid of the rougher textures. So it's just like if you want to smooth out the skin, it's a really nice feature, a way to do it. And you can kind of like almost shift the shading that a little bit that way as well, if that makes sense. So, you know, if like I needed that brightness to kind of come in a bit more, I can kind of grab it from this direction versus if I wanted to push that dark area out more, I'm going to push from this direction. So it works a lot like traditional materials. So there, I'm just kind of blending that together. Before we're done, I want to show you guys a cool effect that I love doing. I'm going to do it on a new layer, and I'm going to go to spray paints, and I'm going to choose, I think I want to choose like, actually, why don't we do the flicks? And so we'll do them really, really small. And I'm going to choose white. So you can kind of see the highlight up here has a bit of texture to it. So I want to mimic that texture with the spray paint brush. And it's really going to create a more realistic kind of skin tone. And again, I'm doing it on a different layer so that if I want to merge it later, I can, or I can keep it on its separate layer and keep it separate. Then you can like, again, grab like a color that's similar. So up at the top there, I see kind of a pinky tone. So, whoops. So I'm going to just take that pinkish tone and add a little bit of my spray paint up here. This is more like a white tone. Again, on the nose, I'm just reducing the nozzle of my spray paint too for the size that I'm working on. So I really like using this just to add a little bit more texture into skin so it doesn't look so flat and so digital, I guess you could say. And again, you could do it with like a bright color too. Like this. There, I'm adding a bright color to it. So if you guys can see that, hopefully. I like to use the spray paint brushes for freckles too, because I think it does a really good job of making sure you aren't making the freckles look too even, because they're random, right? And so I think our brains tend to try to make things really perfect and symmetrical, but you don't want things like freckles to be perfect and symmetrical. So using a brush like this helps to make it look more natural. Hopefully you guys can see the effects of this on your screen as well. I'll try to zoom in. And so when I zoom out, you're starting to see, hopefully, that it looks a little bit 3D. It's getting there. So guys, I'm gonna wrap this up very soon because we've been on here for an hour. Would anybody like to ask any last questions before I keep working on this all afternoon by myself? Messy Bible asks, what are some tips you'd like to give if someone wants to improve their drawing in Procreate? Hold on, I'm just gonna switch over here. So I think one of the biggest tips for improving portraits is to, it's gonna sound funny, but it's actually to observe. Start observing distances between objects. And I say this to my high school students all the time when they're doing portraits, right? What is the distance between your eye and the side of your head? What is the distance between the two eyes? What is the distance between the bottom of the nose and the eye? Where does the nostril line up in terms of that eye? Looking at those distances and just being really aware of looking at the reference that you're drawing from, and thinking of that almost mathematically in some ways, right? Of thinking about how big is something in relation to another part of the portrait. So I actually think that seeing is the first step to drawing portraits accurately. And then of course, practice, practice, practice. I probably didn't consider myself a portrait artist maybe like 6 years ago. I did a lot of dabbled in a lot of different type of art. And then I just got obsessed with drawing faces, and I just drew them over and over and over again. And some of my early drawings, they're not the best I've ever created, but they're all part of my process. I just kept drawing. And so that's like, again, the number one tip I can say is just put in the time and then making sure you're really observing what you're drawing. We have a tendency to sometimes, if we have a reference in front of us, get kind of almost tunnel visioned into our drawing without actually looking at our reference. So back and forth, looking at the reference, looking at your page. That's the kind of the biggest tip that I can give you. And Meryl loves his iPad. Yay! I love my iPad too. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me today. Just a reminder that our new course, the Portrait Artist Guide to Procreate, is out right now in the Sktchy Art School. So if you haven't signed up for it already, I really hope to maybe see you in the class one day. I'm really proud of this class because, like I said before, it's got that new video format where you can watch things in small chunked videos rather than having to watch big long videos, which I think really helps with something like working on an iPad where you just might want to quickly reference a technique or quickly reference a tool. So it's got that for you guys. It's got putting everything into practice from start to finish. It has basic features, fun features, advanced features, animation. There's so much packed into this class. So I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys in the course and seeing what you can create in Procreate. And yeah, I'll keep working on my portrait here that I started today and post it to Sktchy and the Sktchy Art School, hopefully by the end of today. Okay, thank you so much for watching, guys. If you have any questions for me and I didn't answer them today, you can message me on the Sktchy Art School as well, and I'd be happy to answer those questions for you. So yeah, we have a link to the Sktchy shop. If you guys want to check out that link, it'll take you to an overview of the course. Thank you very much, guys. Have a great day. Thanks for watching.